This is Martin Giles. Restarting the interview with Howard Smith. Unfortunately, there was an interruption which we couldn't be avoided. Howard, we just stopped talking about bus services and how you would like to improve them. Something
Yes.
else you would like to change is the amount of council homes that are available in Guildford. But how, I mean, councils over several decades have failed to build significant numbers of more council homes. But of course,
Mhm.
that's what we need really in Guildford to address
Mhm.
those on the housing list.
Yeah.
How do you see that we could get more housing, more council houses?
Well, to be honest with you, Martin, it shouldn't be that difficult because on the one hand, the council has quite a lot of space, so land for development, and on the other hand, we've got a large amount of money, tens of millions, in the HRA, which is obviously the account where the money that's ring fenced that you can use for building extra council housing. So you put those two together, and you've got everything you need to move forward on that.
Where is
It's
this
just
land?
well, you've got stretches of land. There's small sites. There's a list of small sites that we have, certainly around my ward. Sort of small developments that can be built. Some that have been in progress since I was a councillor and before. In places, Clover Road, for example, there's a whole load of garages there that are no longer needed, and that can be demolished. And there's sort of provisional plans to do that. We've got lots of homes in, say, Foxboroughs, which can be redeveloped, unused, vacant mostly, with large gardens, and we
So
can develop
Foxborough, we're
those
talking
sites.
about that's in your ward in
In
Westborough.
my ward in Westbury, yeah, there's lots of
And so,
sites
what
there.
are we talking about there? Do you mean those houses that have become derelict because of subsidence and they could be
That's right.
redeveloped?
That's right.
And so they're quite small plots, aren't they? I mean, how many houses could you fit on them?
Well, they've just demolished two houses in Southway that were affected by subsidence, and on
And are
that
you,
plot, it has a large garden, and you could probably put eight two-bed flats on that plot. There's other plots around Westborough as well. Like I say, at Clover Road, there's some disused garages there, and you can build those. And a lot of these sort of are plans in progress, but they just don't seem to develop much further. And that's something we could certainly provide. As you know, we've got over 2,300 people on the council house waiting list. I
yeah.
think that's currently a record, the highest number of people. And I'm dealing with housing issues all the time. I mean, families grow. You may move into a one-bed flat or a two-bed flat as a couple. You get married, you start having children, and you need a bigger place. So there's huge demand. We know that demand, but that demand isn't being let. And of course, as you know, the Liberal Democrats promised us 3,000 council houses, which was, totally ridiculous. We don't have enough land for 3,000, but we could certainly do 30 or 50 or 100
But
in
we
the
actually,
next couple of years.
but with over 2,000 on the waiting list, we're going to
Mhm.
need 1,000 or more, aren't we?
Well, we're never going to meet the demand for everything, but that's no reason for not to progress and make a start and see what we can do.
No,
Um, you
I
know,
don't think anyone would disagree with that. But
yeah.
to meet the housing need, we are going to need significantly bigger projects than just a few here and there, aren't we?
We will, but I mean, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Let's crack on and do what we can. Let's be realistic, but let's set ourselves some targets because so few in the last 3 years, almost zero have been built in the last few years. And it's not, as I say, not a lack of space. It's not a lack of money. It's just we need to crack on and perhaps need a different approach within GBC to develop those sites and get them moving and get those homes built. Because as I say, there's a large demand for it, and not building is not going to solve anyone's problems.
But so why hasn't it happened, do you think,
I
to date?
think it's a lack of willingness to focus on this, um, provide the resources to get it done, and being distracted by other things, and not focusing on things that really need to be done. I mean, you can see what needs to be done. You can see a way for it to be done. So it's very frustrating that it's not being done.
But this is not a local problem. In fact, council houses haven't been built in large numbers across the country. So is it, why is that?
I don't know. I think there are places that are building council homes. In fact, in Guildford, the site of the old fire station, that's now that was developed about 10 years ago. That was developed. There was a pub site in my ward in Southway, and that's developed. That's got social housing on. So it is possible to do it. It just seems to have ground to a halt about 5 years ago, and credit to the Conservatives to a degree, because they were the ones that built and developed those sites. It's since we've had, the Liberal Democrats that we've not been able to deliver those sites, and that's extremely frustrating for anyone that cares about, providing additional decent homes for residents in Guildford that are in great demand.
Okay, now, do you think that West Surrey has the capacity, the space for further population increase at the rate we've seen over the last decade?
Um, I mean, I don't know the whole of West Surrey. I know Guildford. This is my town. This is where I was born, and I know my ward pretty well, I like to think. Um, as far as the wider area, I would have to defer to others that know those areas better. It would be wrong of me to sort of cast judgment on what's happening in Woking or Waverley or Spelthorne or anywhere else, because I just don't have that. My focus as a councillor has always been primarily on my ward and what I can do for the people in my ward. So I would hope there are areas, that we can build homes, and I'm sure there are. But if you'd ask me where are they, I honestly couldn't answer that question.
But do you think there's space? I mean, here in the Guildford area, at least,
Mhm.
how can we meet the government imposed housing targets without further encroachment onto the greenbelt?
Well, we've got a call for sites. We've had a call for sites recently, haven't we, for to ensure that we can, meet the housing targets. And I think we have to wait for the result of that to see what comes forward. And hopefully there will be some suitable, appropriate sites coming forward, as we've seen in the past. And it probably be wrong of me to sort of prejudge that, but I'm hopeful that there will be such. Remember, I mean, people say, "Oh, greenbelt, precious greenbelt," and I agree, but at the same time, we've classified a lot of this part of Surrey as greenbelt, and not all of it is what most people would expect to be to be considered as greenbelt. So um, I'm confident there will be some sites, but let's wait to see what people have brought forward and consider those when we have them.
Well, wherever greenbelt has been proposed for development, it's brought a lot of reaction from nearby people, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, it has.
So, I, I don't know where all these sites are that are meant to be grey belt or green belt that isn't very green in Guildford. Do you?
Um, I that's as I say, my focus is really on my ward, and the people in my ward. So um,
But
we've
that's
had.
not good enough, is it, Howard? Because you're going to be deciding on where these houses are going to be built, not just
Yeah.
throughout Guildford, but throughout West Surrey.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And as they come forward, if I'm in a position to decide, if I'm on a committee or planning committee or whatever that has a say in that, then I'll take each one on its merits. And I would hope that we would make some good decisions on that. But I mean, we do know there's some grey belt or brownfield sites. We know that um, Guildford Park Road, the development there. I think
But
most
that's
people
being
wouldn't
used, isn't
consider.
it? That's already
Well,
being used.
absolutely. So, are there other sites like that? There probably are. If you want me to name them, I don't know because I'm not in charge of that. But I would like to think that some of the development we've got North Street. Obviously, no one would regard that as Greenbelt. We've had the Portsmouth Road development. We've had lots of projects in the town centre, which I think is really fantastic.
but we've also
Yeah,
had quite a few developments on green fields, and there's a big one being proposed in Normandy, which is causing a tremendous reaction. Are you in favour
yeah.
of that one?
Uh, I'm not a councillor in Normandy. I presume that at some stage it will come to the planning committee, and when it comes to, if I'm on the planning committee still, then I would consider that when it comes. But it's not an area that I'm familiar with, and it's not something that I have to consider when I've got a very busy time casework dealing with residents in my ward to then go to Normandy to consider that. But I'm presumed that it will come to the planning committee fairly soon, in a couple of months or so, I understand. And when that time comes, as what I like to think of myself as a diligent member of the planning committee, hopefully we'll get a site visit to that. Hopefully we can make a good judgment on that and take into account residents' concerns at the same time. But I'm not familiar with it right now because that's not the top of my sort of to-do list as a Westborough councillor.
Okay. Now, another local issue, which I don't think you have said anything about in your pamphlet, is potholes and road surfaces. I'm sure people have mentioned these to you on the doorstep. It would be unusual if they don't in any local election. So, what have you got to say about those?
Well, obviously, it affects everybody, doesn't it? It's right across Guildford. It's in my just outside my street, we've got terrible. We had to replace a tire on our car last year because we hit a pothole. I mean, we're all playing a sort of swerve the potholes as we're driving around,
Yeah,
and
and
but
it's
then
even more dangerous for cyclists, and you're a cyclist too.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. No, it's can be hell on the cycle, on the bike, especially if you've got kids on the back. So it's an
Mm.
enormous problem. Yeah, I mean, it needs to be resolved, and I think we need to get together and work out a way that it can be resolved. I mean, I've seen guys out in their trucks, filling in potholes. I'm not a pothole expert. I would like to see it resolved. Obviously, like everyone in Guildford would like to see it resolved. Um, I don't think there's a magic bullet solution. I think it obviously requires some more money, I would imagine. And we've seen some good research. I mean, where I am on Long London Road, we've had some good resurfacing work done there. It was done very efficiently, and it looks really smart and really good. We had a crossing put in, a pedestrian crossing put in. The work was done to a really high standard. So I think the tools and the and whatever's needed to resurface roads is out there. I worry to a degree, without being an expert, that we're just going. It's a sort of a complete case of whack-a-mole. As soon as you filled one or two, another couple come up, and then the ones that you repaired last year are now need to be repaired again. So I think I think the communication from Surrey needs to be better as well, because obviously it's a Surrey County Council
Mm.
responsibility. And I think
Well,
they
it
need
is at the
to,
moment, but it will be. You're standing in
yeah,
West Surrey,
absolutely.
and
Yeah,
it's going to
yeah.
be
And
a unitary
yeah, I mean,
authority.
that could well be one of the benefits of having a unitary authority, because it's frustrating. Because although I obviously, as I imagine most Guildford Borough councillors are concerned about the issue, we don't have a lot of power to do much about it. And I
Mm.
think when we've got a unitary authority, I mean, if one of my residents comes to me and says, "What are you going to do about this pothole?" I don't have much more power than they do to write to the council to point it out as a
Yeah,
pothole. But I do think, and I think we all accept that one of the benefits of having a
yeah,
unitary authority is that it combines that. So,
yeah.
I can't run away from the problem because it's going to be my problem, and I can't say that I'm looking forward to dealing with that problem.
No, no, but it is a
But I
real
think it would,
problem. It's a real
yes,
problem that has
yeah,
real consequences. It doesn't
yes.
just affect damage to cars; it could affect lives, couldn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, as you say, you bring up the cycling thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's terrifying sometimes. And even when you know where they are, sometimes they're unavoidable and you can't do anything about
Well,
it.
even
And you have
yes,
to,
because even steering suddenly to avoid one, if you've got a
yeah,
car right behind you overtaking you on a bike, they might not be aware you're going to make that movement, and that could be very risky.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. And when you've got children on the back too, then
Yeah.
that is, yeah, it's a very serious problem. I think,
Okay.
I think, I think there is a way to solve this problem. I think Surrey County Council need to be communicate what they're doing and how they are doing it much better.
Okay.
But
Now,
but I think, yeah.
I was at a hustings the other night in Onslow, and the
Mm.
Green Party candidates said that they were going to bring it in house. They weren't going to outsource the repair. What would you say about that?
I would have to look at what the
Okay,
benefits and
but you'd
the
be open
drawbacks.
to considering it.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. If there's more efficient, I think we can also look at the experience from other. The first thing I would do is look at the experience of other counties and see how how they deal with the problem, whether they're much better at resolving the problem, and use the experience of others. And I think that would be possibly a way forward. If bring it in house solves it, it doesn't always solve it, but if that solved it, then I'd be in favour of that too.
Okay, well, we're at the end of our time now. Thank you
Right.
very much, especially for your patience because of the interruption to the interview,
No problem.
Howard. And yes, and no doubt we'll be speaking in due course.
Thanks, Martin. Always a pleasure to speak to you. Take care.
And you.